Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into something that definitely made waves, Merck & Co. Announcing a huge acquisition. Verona Pharma, we're talking $10 billion.
Yeah, $10 billion. It's a really substantial move, and, at first glance, it might just seem like another case of big pharma snapping up a smaller biotech, right? One with a promising drug.
Exactly. And that's why we want to unpack this one. Our mission today is to figure out why this deal is so critical, not just for Merck, actually, but maybe as a kind of window into the strategies these big pharma companies are using now. They're facing huge challenges, but also seeing opportunities.
Right.
So we'll look at the why behind it all, the drug itself, which sounds pretty interesting, the financials, of course, and importantly, why this isn't the magic bullet for Merck. What has to come next for them and maybe for the whole industry?
Okay, so let's start with the elephant in the room for Merck. Keytruda.
Ah, yes, the blockbuster cancer drug.
Blockbuster doesn't even quite cover it, does it? We're talking nearly $30 billion in revenue expected just this year, 2024. That's almost half of Merck's total income. It's been an absolute engine for them.
Incredible numbers.
But here's the rub. While Keytruda's been this massive success, it's also their biggest future headache. This is the core problem. Keytruda's main U.S. patent starts expiring in 2028.
The famous patent cliff. That clock is definitely ticking. For listeners maybe not deep in the pharma world, what does that patent expiration actually mean in practical terms?
It means a huge loss of pricing power. And critically, a massive drop in revenue as cheaper generic versions start hitting the market. It's inevitable.
So the big question for Merck is, how do you possibly replace that kind of revenue?
Exactly. Their strategy has to be finding new revenue streams. And ideally, they want things that are either already approved or, very close. Things they can scale up quickly, and drugs that tackle big unmet medical needs.
Okay, which sets the stage perfectly for Verona Pharma.
Precisely. Verona Pharma. Not exactly a household name, probably.
No, can't say I'd heard of them before this deal. But clearly, they had something Merck wanted badly, $10 billion badly. What is it?
It's their lead product, Ohtuvayre. The generic name is ensifentrine. It just got FDA approval mid-2024. And it's a pretty big deal for COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease.
Okay, COPD, huge patient population there. And it's described as a first-in-class inhaled therapy. What makes its mechanism unique?
So it's a dual-acting PDE3, PDE4 inhibitor. Basically, that means it does two key things. It helps open up the airways, and it reduces inflammation in the lungs.
Ah.
And the really important part, it does this without the kind of nasty side effects you often get with steroid treatments, which are common in COPD.
That sounds significant. I mean, COPD affects, nearly 400 million people globally?
It's massive.
Yeah.
And astonishingly, there hasn't been a genuinely new class of inhaled drug for it in decades. So yeah, this isn't just a minor tweak. It's potentially a major step forward.
Right, a real innovation.
And the early signs are good, too. It pulled in about $71 million in its first full quarter on the market. Analysts are talking peak sales potential, somewhere between, say, $2.5 billion and maybe even $4 billion a year.
Wow. That's serious money, even for a giant like Merck.
It is. And there's more potential, too. There's talk of label expansion.
Meaning using it for other conditions.
Exactly. Things like non-cystic fibrosis, bronchiectasis, other lung diseases. So Merck isn't just buying one drug for one condition. They might be buying a whole new platform, potentially.
Okay, so the science looks promising. Let's talk about the deal itself, the numbers.
Right, the financials. So Merck is paying $10 billion, all cash. That works out to $107 per Verona ADS, their U.S.-listed shares. That was a 23% premium over the price the day before the announcement.
And the all-cash, no contingencies part. That really signals how much they wanted this, doesn't it? No messing around.
Definitely shows strong conviction. And it seems like it should be relatively smooth sailing. Verona's board, major shareholders, they're already on board. Regulatory hurdles look pretty minimal, too.
Why is that?
Because there isn't really any product overlap. Merck isn't already a big player in this specific type of COPD treatment, so antitrust concerns should be low.
Okay. And the hit to Merck's own bottom line, their earnings per share, the EPS?
Expected to be pretty modest, actually. About 16 cents per share dip in the first year after the deal closes, which, when you weigh it against that multi-billion-dollar potential, seems like a reasonable price to pay.
So on paper, it looks like a good, solid strategic move.
Yeah, most analyses are calling it a pretty smart acquisition.
Yeah.
But, and this is the big but, it immediately begs the question, is it enough?
Back to the Keytruda problem. Because even if Ohtuvayre hits those top-end sales forecasts, say $4 billion.
Right. Even that rosy scenario, $4 billion a year, That replaces less than 15% of the revenue Merck stands to lose when Keytruda goes off patent post-2028. Less than 15%.
So this deal, as good as it might be, it's definitely not a one-and-done solution.
Not even close. This has to be seen as like the opening act, the first step in what needs to be a sustained effort, probably an acquisition spree for Merck.
And their CEO, Rob Davis, has basically said as much, hasn't he? Hinting they're still hungry for deals.
He has mentioned looking specifically at immunology, oncology, their home turf, and cardiovascular medicine. And look, the firepower is there. Big Pharma collectively has something like $1.3 trillion available for M&A. Merck has the cash.
So if this isn't enough, what do they need? What should we be looking for next from Merck?
Well, to really fill that Keytruda gap, they need multiple blockbusters, plural. They probably need, 3 or 4 more Verona-sized hits just to tread water, revenue-wise.
And ideally, things close to market, right?
Preferably. Assets already approved, or maybe within, say, 18 months of filing for approval. That speeds things up considerably.
And oncology makes sense, too, building on their strength.
Absolutely. They need more late-stage oncology targets,
Mm-hmm.
things with novel mechanisms, maybe bispecific antibodies or ADCs, those armed antibody drugs, and maybe even cell therapies. Stuff where they can leverage their existing sales force and expertise.
Right.
And beyond single drugs, they'll likely keep looking for platform plays. Like you mentioned, with Ohtuvayre potentially being more than just COPD, buying biotech companies that have technologies capable of generating multiple drug candidates over time.
Like Prometheus, which they bought last year.
Exactly like Prometheus in the immunology space. That's a perfect example. And maybe geographic expansion, too. Buying companies focused on emerging markets, say in Asia, to get a foothold in faster-growing regions.
It's interesting because Merck isn't operating in a vacuum here, is it? Other big pharma companies are in a similar boat.
Oh, absolutely. Pfizer, Bristol-Myers Squibb, AbbVie, J&J. They all have their own major patent cliffs looming or happening now. They're all out hunting for pipeline assets.
So the M&A market is heating up.
It really has. 2024 and looks like 2025 are shaping up to be pretty big years for biotech deals, especially after things were a bit quieter in 22, 23.
But it feels like Merck's approach has been maybe more measured. They didn't seem to jump into that frenzy back in 2021 with all the SPACs.
That's a fair point. They seemed quite disciplined, actually. They waited, let some air out of the bubble, perhaps, and now they seem to be picking up assets like Verona at valuations that look, well, relatively sane compared to a few years ago.
Which is probably smart management.
It is. But it also means the pressure is on for each deal they do make to really perform. They haven't spread their bets as widely as some others might have during the peak. Each one has to count.
And of course, no deal is totally risk-free. What are the potential pitfalls here with Verona?
Well, first, commercial execution. Will doctors actually prescribe Ohtuvayre as much as hoped? Will insurance companies, the payers, give it good reimbursement? That's never guaranteed. Then there's global approvals. It's approved in the U.S., but still needs the green light elsewhere. Europe is probably next, but regulatory pathways can always throw up surprises. And as we touched on, Verona is pretty much a one-product story right now. If something unexpected happens with Ohtuvayre, a new safety issue, maybe a competitor comes out of nowhere, faster generic entry, there's really no backup plan within Verona itself.
That's a bit precarious.
It adds risk. And finally, there's always integration risk. Taking a small, maybe nimble biotech and absorbing it into the giant machinery of Merck. You have to be careful not to accidentally crush the innovative culture you just paid for.
Right, the bear hug that kills the startup vibe.
Exactly. It's a classic challenge in pharma M&A.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what's the key takeaway for you, the listener, watching this unfold?
I think you should be cautiously optimistic about Merck's strategy here. This deal shows they're serious about tackling that massive Keytruda problem. And they seem willing to spend significant money, but perhaps wisely, avoiding the peak hype.
Cautiously optimistic. But the clock is still ticking.
Very much so. The market, Wall Street, they'll be watching like hawks. The expectation is definitely for more deals. Probably, I'd say, at least 2 more deals of this kind of size, or maybe several smaller ones with clear platform potential within the next maybe 12 to 18 months.
And if that doesn't happen?
If they don't deliver more pipeline boosters relatively soon, you can bet the market will start getting nervous about that 2028 cliff.
So to sum up, Verona looks like a smart strategic acquisition. Gives Merck a solid entry into the big COPD market, potential for growth, fair price, good fit.
All true. Solid beachhead.
But it's just not enough on its own, not against the scale of the Keytruda cliff. This deal shows the path they need to follow. Acquire smartly, integrate quickly, scale globally.
It has to be the start of a sustained campaign. One done with discipline, yes, but also with decisiveness. They can't afford to wait too long.
Because that patent clock just keeps ticking. Merck doesn't just need to replace Keytruda's dollars. You could argue they need to kind of reinvent themselves for the post-Keytruda era, which leads to a final thought for you to consider. What other pharma giants do you see facing similar make-or-break moments right now, and how might they try to reinvent their own empires?